Point, click, count, save. Scanning SKU codes for Northwind StockTake. In the first presentation on Northwind StockTake, I gave you a demonstration or an overview of the entire process from setting up the StockTake in the Northwind Access environment through scanning a couple of sample barcodes in the PowerApps app running on the mobile phone. In this installment, I'm going to take a deeper look at some of the elements in the architecture and the code that make the Northwind StockTake mobile app work. In this video, we'll talk about three key features of the barcode scanning process. First, we'll look at the bridge table in Dataverse. StockTakeScan was created by denormalizing the existing StockTake table with additional fields from the products table and publishing it to Dataverse. I refer to it as a bridge table because it is a way to move the data back and forth between the Access interface and the PowerApps interface. The data in it is initialized by the StockTake process in the Access side. Then those records in that Dataverse table are updated when the StockTakeScan itself is completed in the PowerApps environment. The final step is back in Access. Once the records are updated in the PowerApps app, we can then use them to update our permanent records in Access. The second thing we'll look at is the method I used to control where the keypad and products appear on the input screen. Because it's a virtual keypad, we can place it either on the left or the right, according to the preference of the user. I did that as a way to demonstrate the use of a container, and we'll look more closely at the container itself in a moment. The star of the show, no doubt, will be the barcode scanner. When Northwind opens, the first working form you see is the orders form. To set up our StockTake, we have to go through the system admin. This is an admin function that would be performed by the sales manager, for example. Let's check the system settings table. There is a setting here for close for StockTake, and it's set to true during the StockTake period. The purpose of that field, or that value, is to prevent new orders and new purchase orders from being entered during the course of a StockTake. The quarterly StockTake form, and I used quarterly, your business may use a more frequent or a less frequent StockTake period. My quarterly StockTake, the first step is to run the close StockTake for StockTake procedure. It does several things, including set that flag I just showed you. It also updates the StockTakeScan table with the expected quantity, which is calculated, as we've said in previous videos, from prior StockTakes plus purchases minus orders, and that will give us our expected calculated value for quantities on the shelf. It also initializes our current StockTake to nothing and sets the StockTake date to nothing. This is in preparation for running an actual StockTake. Note that this data is live in Dataverse, which means that as you enter each new product scan in the mobile barcode scan app, it will update here. I added a refresh data to ensure that the sales manager is always looking at the current data. Let's look at the code. The first thing we do is put up a message box informing the user that StockTake setup is about to begin. The next thing we do is set the flag in the system settings table that indicates StockTake is now underway. The order form or the purchase order form. Use that flag to decide whether to display form read-only or data entry for new users during the period of time when StockTake is underway. The next step is to run a query which will append any newly added products in our product inventory to the StockTake table. That way they will be available for StockTake. The third step is the update query, which uses the procedure for calculating expected quantities to update the StockTakeScan table expected quantities field. Finally, we show the user message that the StockTake event is complete and we're ready to update our permanent records. StockTake is set up in the Access interface. Our Dataverse table, the bridge table that carries the StockTakeScan results back and forth, is ready to go. In our PowerApps Development environment, let's start by looking at the Dataverse table we created to support the mobile scanning, which we created using the make table query in Access, then migrated that table from Access to Dataverse, and it's now available here. Let's look at the data in it. The table has been initialized in Access to include our products, our product names, our scan code. We use the function in Access to generate our expected quantity. The quantity in the package came from that field in the products table. Our quantity on hand and stock take date were initialized in preparation for this stock take. There are 18 fields that are not shown in this view. Many of them are metadata fields which are not relevant to what we're doing here. Let's go back and look at our PowerApps application, starting with the options. I have two options available, two settings. First is whether the keypad appears on the left or on the right, and the second is the percentage of shrinkage we're going to allow before we raise an alarm. Here's how it works. In the barcode scan screen, we have two containers. The one on the left contains the products. The one on the right contains the keypad. The products container is now on the left. The keypad container is on the right. A container is a type of control in the PowerApps environment which itself includes or contains other controls. You can see, for example, the keypad scan container includes all of these controls within it. The keys, the clear button, and so on. The products container has a gallery, which is this control here, and the barcode scan button. Controls within a container move with the container. So all we have to do to move the products from the left to the right and the keypad from the right to the left is set the X position of each of those containers. X refers to the distance from the left edge of the screen. You'll notice that it's not set to a number, it's set to a variable called var products. And right now the value of that variable is 20. That means the left edge, or the X position of this container, will be 20 in from the left edge of the screen. If we look at the container for the keypad, its X position is set to var keypad, which again is a variable, the current value of which is 680, or 680 units from the left edge. How do we get there? Let's go back to the options screen and see how that is determined. Set options. The checkbox on the right and the checkbox on the left have on-check actions. The keypad on the left sets the value of var products, that variable we just looked at, to 680, the value of the var keypad variable to 20. The checkbox on the right or the Keypad checkbox, has for its OnCheck action the opposite. It sets var products to 20 and var keypad to 680. All we have to do then to move the container for products from the right to the left or the left to the right is to click the appropriate checkbox, reset the value of that variable, and when we go to that screen, that will determine where on the screen each of those two containers now line up. The container for keypads now lines itself up on the position determined by var keypad, which is now 20, and the container for products lines itself up on the X position of 680. These controls, the container controls, both include all of the internal controls that are needed for the different functions. Before I move on to the next step, which is the barcode scanner, I just wanted to point out that this technique where I set a variable to a specific value and then use that variable to control elements of the interface can be extended in a couple of different directions. For example, colors or font sizes. You can set a fill color and a foreground color. You can set those variables to a color combination that you prefer, or maybe give users the choice between 2 or 3 sets of colors so that they have some degree of control. Interface design is not my strong suit, but I wanted to point out that this method of controlling layout with variables is very powerful and very easy to do in the PowerApps world. Let's turn now to the barcode scanner and see how it works. The barcode reader is an input control supported by the PowerApps. You'll find it under the Insert menu, under Media, Barcode Reader. Clicking the option here inserts it into your screen. I've already added it into my screen. I'll just simply drop it on for the sake of illustration. PowerApps goes out and configures it and drops it on top. You get the warning that it's only available on capable devices and so on. I'll remove that again and we'll work with the one that I already have created. Properties of importance to us are the barcode type, the barcode scanner supports a number of different fonts, including the one which I used, which is Code 39. I decided to leave it at the default, which is Auto, based on the assumption that it will recognize the font that I'm using, and if there are other fonts it's presented later, it will be able to identify them as well. The relevant properties include the X and Y positions, the location of the left edge and the top, and so on, color, the color of the font, the size of the font, and those kinds of things. We want to look at the OnScan event to see what it does and how this works in conjunction with our gallery to select items to be counted for stock. The first thing we do is run an update context command, which toggles the value of barcode full to the current value of our barcode reader. As an aside, update context creates a local variable, which is the equivalent of a private variable in the Access VBA environment. You have public and private variables. Here we have local and global variables. Being a local variable, it's only available to this screen. The first variable we set here, the var barcode full, is the entire value scanned by the barcode scanner. In our case, that could be for example, the alpha and the numeric portion. So it would be NWTDRI-74. It could also include the quantity of packages per unit. Depending on how that barcode is created, it could have multiple pieces of data. So when we scan it, we grab the entire thing and then look for the parts we want. Once we have the full barcode, we parse out, for our purposes, the unique identifier that tells us which product we're looking at. So we create a second local variable called var barcode, which we get by looking at the full barcode, finding the dash in it, moving ahead one space to get past that dash, then taking whatever the next 3 characters are and putting that into var barcode. What that gives us is this value here, 74, 34, 6, 85, if it was a 3-digit number, 1, 2, 3. Those are the unique product identifiers that we need to identify which product code we have just scanned. This section is not being used in this version of the barcode scan software. What this would support is the alternative method where instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4 manually and then using the keypad to enter that value, you continue to scan each package or each unit, the barcode's printed on the side of that unit, until you have scanned them all. That adds up the number. Each time you scan it, it increments this by 1. And then at the end, it creates a collection with that var barcode, the package size, or the unit size, and the number of scans of that particular barcode. That would allow for the more efficient method of scanning. It's not implemented fully. I set up the skeleton. I stubbed it out so it'd be available. We use that in the gallery to filter the items. A gallery has an items property, which is similar to the record source property of a form in Access. This is how we set up our items so that they appear in the gallery and can be filtered. The items in this gallery come from a collection called StockTake. A collection in the PowerApps world is a temporary in-memory table that contains whatever records we want to work with in a particular environment. In this case, we're looking at the entire set of records from the StockTakeScan table. However, I created it as a collection. I see a couple of advantages to using collections rather than directly linking to the data source. Some of the same considerations apply, of course, in an Access form. Number one, we can filter a collection. We can bring in only the records, only a limited number of records that we actually need for a particular circumstance, and minimize the number of records that we drag across the network or across the internet. Number two, once it's in memory, it is available at any point, and that also speeds up performance. And the other reason I like to use collections is that I can limit the columns as well as the rows, so that instead of bringing in all of the fields in a particular record source, I can bring only those that I need. In this case, you can see the ones that I brought in. Earlier in the video, we talked about the number of metadata fields. There were 18 fields that were hidden in our initial view. We don't need any of those for our purposes here, so to cut down on that amount of data as well. In a table the size of this one, with maybe 45 records, the performance aspect is probably not as important as that would be if you were bringing records from a data source that had 1,000 or 10,000 or 50,000 records. in those situations, the advantages of collections become much more apparent. At this point, you may be wondering, well, that's a great idea, but where does that collection come from? Let's look at that now. I generate that collection when the app first starts. PowerApps apps have an action called OnStart, which parallels in many ways the AutoExec Macro in the Access world. There are differences, of course, but you can think of them as having the same primary function. They set variables to start with. In this case, we also initialize our StockTake collection. Right now, what we're mostly interested in is the way we create this StockTakeScan. It comes from the source table, which is StockTakeScan table in Dataverse. The clear collect command says whatever is in there now, remove it and replace it with a new set of records. You could also use the collect command simply to create a new set from scratch where there was no set of records before in the collection. Different approaches for different situations. This is how I limit the number of fields using the show columns command. I go to the StockTakeScan table and say I want only these fields. The rest are not important. Once this has run, we have the collection. After this OnStart action runs, creating the new collection, it is now available to serve as the items in our StockTakeScan gallery. Let's go back and look at that. You can see how this works. We use the StockTake collection and we filter it in one of two ways. The nested filter inside says if we have a specific value in our var barcode, in other words, if we have scanned a barcode and extracted from it the unique identifier for a product, then we're going to use that to filter this gallery to show only that item. That is the equivalent of using a filtered query, a parameterized query in a form to return a single record. There is a second level of filtering, and that is whether or not we want to show all items in the gallery or only those which have not yet been scanned. This outer command is used to sort the items by product name. So when they display in the gallery, they sort from A through Z. That's pretty much it as far as how the gallery works. For the final part of the presentation, I'll switch over to the smartphone, where I have the barcode scanner and I can use it to capture a barcode from a printed page and demonstrate how that filters the gallery to a single record, and from there we can add either continue to click the barcode scanner and use the repetitive scan of the barcodes on packages, or the more expeditious way and enter our counts manually through the keypad. We are now using the PowerApps app on the smartphone. A couple of things to point out before we actually start. First, in the upper right-hand corner, you see that we are connected. Wi-Fi is on the phone, and it's connected to the Dataverse table. The barcode scanner is that button. When I click it, it will activate the barcode scanner in my smartphone. And when I move that barcode scanner over a barcode printed on a piece of paper, it will immediately recognize and capture that barcode. What will happen then is the code that I just showed you will filter the gallery to only the item for which the barcode was scanned. We're going to pick boysenberry spread, which is product NWTJAM-6 barcode, and it has now filtered my gallery There's a bit of a lag between the phone and the screen. Sorry about that. And you can see that the gallery is now filtered. So if I enter counts either by using the keypad, which is the way it's designed to work here, 1, 6, 8. Oops, I accidentally hit the wrong button there. Ugly fingers. Try again. It will catch up. I've entered my 168, which is the expected. Saved it, and now it's updated. You may have noticed in the upper right-hand corner that there was a change in color momentarily. I'm going to try this again with a different product. Watch the upper right-hand corner for the connected icon. This time we'll collect brownie mix, which is product code 85 in WT. BAK-85 and barcode, and it immediately filters my gallery to that product. If I put in 13, watch the upper right-hand corner. It briefly flashed red as that record or as that data is stored back to the Dataverse table. If I take the phone offline, if I put it in airplane mode, it will continue to work in the app, and I've demonstrated that in a previous video, and there will be follow-on videos down the road where I will dive deeper into the offline-online connectivity. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you found something useful, interesting, or educational in this video. If you liked what you saw, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you in the next video where I will take a closer look at the offline-online functionality of the Dataverse table in a PowerApps app.